Hello, I am the Script Doctor. Today I will be taking a look at the flagship show for Disney Plus, The Mandalorian. This will contain some spoilers, so if you have not seen The Mandalorian, please pause this video, watch the first episode, and come back for my review. If you do not care to see the show, and spoilers do not bother you, then sit back and enjoy as I take a look at The Mandalorian Chapter 1. Pilots of a television series are really important. They set the tone, the world, and the characters. When it comes to an intellectual property like Star Wars, 2/3 of that work has been done for you with the films, books, and games. So as a writer, especially in TV, you need to really bring in some great characters. You need 3 essential things to define when making a character. First, their politics, meaning are they a good person or a bad person or somewhere in between. Second, the behavior. How do they interact with others? Are they shy, confident, funny, or cautious? Third, their wants. Is it money? If so, what for? Is it power? If so, what for? Is it love? If so, with whom? If you can tell someone else who's never seen this show or movie those 3 things about a character or several characters, they are more likely to be interested in the show as you were. But if you cannot express those basic details about a character or the characters in a story, then how are others going to be invested in the journey? When we're introduced to the Mandalorian, he is reserved and confident. When he completes his bounty and goes for another, we get a taste of his politics. When payment is offered, he refuses the deal because they are Imperial credits. When offered another currency of lesser value, he takes it without issue. This informs us of his bias towards the Empire. We learn that even though he is in need of money and willing to take multiple bounties at once, he has a preference for non-Imperial currency. When the jobs don't yield a high enough return, he is offered a very ambiguous one with a lucrative reward. He goes to the meeting location to discover these deep pockets belong to Imperial remnants, members of an old empire whose currency he has just refused. Instead of rejecting the clients, he listens when they offer him Beskar, a rare metal used for making Mandalorian armor. Because he accepts, we learn that his own ethics can be put aside for the right price, and that this may come into play later. Because this metal is important enough to challenge his own ethics, then we are left to imagine what his plans will be once he gets the rest. Is it for himself? Is it for his Mandalorian tribe? This is what is going to hold our interest for either a few episodes or the entire season. We are eventually going to find out if the Mandalorian has a soul. Will he sacrifice who he is for his tribe or hold on to his convictions knowing that those he's responsible for will suffer longer as a result? That's a great question to have in a story, and I hope as the show progresses we get that question and multiple compelling viewpoints regarding the choices. Because we're able to learn these 3 things about the character in a relatively short time, the anonymity of who he is under the helmet does not work against him. In most cases, if you cannot see the face of the character or learn their name and they die, you don't feel anything. These characters are at an emotional distance from us as an audience. So what has been done in The Mandalorian is to build up and focus on what you can see and hear so that we can connect with the character without having to give them a face. When you have a good and strongly defined character leading your story, you have given a reason for the audience to come back and see more. That being said, it doesn't mean the overall story must fall to the wayside. There are a lot of things that are glossed over in The Mandalorian. Their bounties have these trackers on them. Now, while I do know quite a lot about Star Wars, I don't know everything, and watching this show I discovered a gap in my knowledge, specifically in regards to these bounty tracking devices. I find it kind of strange that any objective that is not a criminal skipping town would have a tracking device in them. If someone puts a bounty on a character's head and there is a system in place where they can automatically be tracked, it just seems a little too easy for the premise. Would it not be more entertaining and challenging for our characters if they actually had to do an investigation? Follow up on their last sightings, interrogate or negotiate with others to learn additional information? Perhaps setting up a cat and mouse type story. Instead, what The Mandalorian does is have the plot of this episode mimic a video game. The target is on your minimap and all you have to do is follow the beep. It's rather boring. There's no questions, no obstacles, and no discovery. 3 aspects of a story that keeps audiences engaged. The next part that is glossed over is the blurg. It is quite a fun scene to see our hero learn how to tame and ride a blurg. We are told they are needed in order to traverse the area for our hero to get to his bounty, but it is missing a very important detail. What makes the blurg valuable? Why is this the best way to get to where our hero needs to be? Why can't our hero walk? Why can't our hero land his ship closer to the site? What is on this journey that prevents all other means of travel except riding a blurg? We are not shown. We see them moving across the desert plains, hopping over small crevices that our hero could do themselves. When our hero finally gets to his destination, what we end up seeing is that the last 6 minutes of this story with the blurg and the Ugnaught is meaningless. There is no challenge on this journey that demanded the use of the blurg. They don't have a special trait or skill on display, they're just another type of horse. They'll get to the target faster, but we don't have a ticking clock put in place, so that becomes irrelevant. As a result, this little side plot doesn't have any meaning to it aside from a character learning how to tame an animal. That's right, this entire 6-minute subplot is only about how the Mandalorian tames a wild animal. It is a great skill and objective to have for the character, but because it is only that action, it is not a great use of time. There is a missing step. We got the introduction, we got the conflict between the blurg and the Mandalorian, we got the taming of the blurg by the Mandalorian, but we are missing the teamwork between the blurg and the Mandalorian. A moment where these two, man and beast, work together to achieve the goal. In a story that is only 36 minutes in length, you've wasted 6 of them on essentially nothing. That's 1/6 of your story that could have been used for something else. Perhaps a longer battle at the camp alongside IG-11, or have the same length of battle, but when they're trying to get through the door, they bring in the blurg who is able to knock it down. Just an idea. The next big issue comes at the very end, when the Mandalorian discovers the baby. It is the same species as Yoda and Yaddle. There is no official name for this species, but Lee Brackett in her Star Wars II script originally named Yoda's character Minch, so until we get another name for this little one, I'm going to call it Minch. Its species is a minch. And this little baby is 50 years old, which is fine. What I find difficult to believe is that the mind of this 50-year-old baby Minch is still that of an infant. Just because a species ages slower physically does not mean that its mind develops slower as well. Yoda was 900 years old when we were introduced to him, and if their mental development was as slow as their age, that would make Yoda with the equivalent development of an 18-year-old human. Does that seem right? Does that seem faithful to the mythos? I am truly hoping that the baby Minch is just pretending to be like an actual infant for its own protection. Otherwise, you have a very peculiar and unreliable aspect to this species in Star Wars that may conflict with those first 6 films. Without seeing any more, all I can say is that The Mandalorian is a pretty solid visual representation of the Star Wars universe with a strong character. Sadly, from this pilot alone, it appears they put more effort into the visuals and the main character than they did in this episode's story. It is very off balance, its structure is odd, and the pacing, while consistent, isn't used economically. The Mandalorian claims a bounty, gets a new bounty, learns to ride a blurg, and then captures the bounty he was assigned in the episode. When those beats are spoken out loud, you can see the hiccup of the story. For a 36-minute episode, we should have been entertained with 6 distinct moments that built on top of each other. Sadly, the blurg subplot is a waste and detours the flow without any reward. What also disappoints me is the familiarity of this story. We have a hero charged with protecting a baby. Did we not see that in the 2008 Star Wars The Clone Wars film? I sincerely hope we are not getting a recycled idea, but I cannot help but see the similarity. If the episode length remains the same, when it is all said and done, we are looking at essentially a 4-hour film. That being said, I am curious about the conflict the character will face with the next episode. Having to choose between the child and the reward that I suspect will help him and his people is not very easy. Obviously, questions about what these Imperials are planning to do with the child come into play as well. So while the first episode is not entirely a home run, this series still does have a lot of potential, and I look forward to seeing what comes next. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have anything to add to this episode, please leave a comment below. Thank you for watching, and never forget, it all starts with the script.